Welcome to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Chakras, and as you can see, I'm sitting behind a digital piano that has a Kawai name on it. And this isn't just any Kawai digital piano. This is the Kawai ES920 that so many people have wanted me to review. I've probably received 50 to 70 comments on my channel, probably more, asking for the ES920, the ES920, we want the 920. So here is the ES920. Now the ES920 has a slightly more affordable model version. I think of them as being closely related. It's called the ES520 and it has many similarities, especially aesthetically, with the ES920. However, I figured that I'd go with the more expensive version that has all of the features, and I'd perhaps save the ES520 for a later date. But I think the ES920 we'll cover all of our bases for now, because I believe it shares many of the same things with the ES520. So what is the ES920? Well, essentially it's an upgraded, newer version of the renowned Kawai ES8. Many people consider the old ES8 to be one of Kawai's best digital pianos. I don't quite agree with that, but I think the ES920 has definitely made some improvements over the ES8. Now, I'm actually going to be doing a comparison video where I have both the ES8 and the ES920 stacked on top of each other like I used to do a few months ago on the channel, and that's going to be a super cool video. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, you might want to think about doing that to get that cool video between the Kawai ES920 and the Kawai ES8. Now, I wanted to talk about not only the digital piano itself, but also some of the things it comes with before I get around to playing it. And when I do play it, I'm going to actually turn the keyboard around so you guys can see the user interface better and watch me use it. The user interface in this I am a big fan of. So, the build quality is one of the things I usually start off my videos with, and the build quality of the ES920 is a bit interesting. Again, I'm going to keep comparisons between this and the ES8 for its respective video, so stay tuned for that. But the build quality of the ES920 isn't quite as high as I was expecting. It is around $1,500 US, and for that price point, I expected something beefy and metal and really, really sturdy, and the build quality is acceptable. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's not horrible. It's just not as high quality as I expected from Kawai, who usually makes state-of-the-art flagship digital pianos. For example, the MP11 SE, yes, it's more expensive than this, but just for the sake of discussion, the MP11 SE almost has the feeling that Kawai put as much craftsmanship and effort into building it as they do their real acoustic pianos. It has that durable, tanky feel, and this doesn't have that. However, it is acceptable. I just think that the hollow plastic feel to it, you know, the hollow plastic top, the flexible, bendy front piece that can actually flex forward enough to touch the front of the keys, you know, hollow plastic all around. Even the underside, which normally is made of either a solid slab of composite plastic or sometimes MDF, in this digital piano, it's just hollow plastic. And so I feel like not the fit and finish, it plays fine, but just what's the word I'm looking for? The way it's put together, the assembly, the build quality, I guess is just the best word to use, isn't as high as I would have expected or would have liked to see from Kawai from an instrument of this tier, because this is definitely in a professional league of instruments. I haven't found any music that this instrument is really unable to play. It can handle most anything you throw at it. It's a professional level instrument, and as a result, in my opinion, should have more of a professional level build quality. Now, as I said multiple times, I'm going to be doing a comparison video between this and the ES8, and also between this and the Yamaha P515, which is another video that people have been wanting me to do for ages, ever since this was announced, because these are in like the same price bracket and they also have a very similar aesthetic as well. So I will save comparisons between this and the P515 for its respective video too. So if you're one of those folks who's been wanting to see that video and you're not already subscribed, you might want to think about doing that. So now I want to talk about some of the peripherals it comes with, the pedal, the music stand, and even the owner's manual, because it's really good. So what I'm going to do is zoom in a little bit more, because I've got a couple of little close-up details I want to show you, and we'll do that in just a second. If there's one thing I know that people of the internet love to see, it's protective coverings being removed. Now, this won't be as satisfying as the one of the smartphone being removed because there's buttons and stuff underneath of it, but I literally saved this cover on this digital piano for like 8 hours, and it's been bugging me because I wanted to remove it on camera. So here we go. There we go. That's nice. So that is the part of the controls of the Kawai ES920. And like I said, I'll turn the keyboard around and let you see the controls a little bit better, but I will also talk about those a little bit here too. You've got your fader sliders, and it looks really good actually with that plastic removed. That doubled the appearance and the appeal of this instrument. It looks really, really good now. It has a satin kind of a finish here, and I really like the screen they've used in this. In the old ES8, I think they used an older style screen, but this is like an OLED display, very similar to what Nord uses in their pianos. And I know that Kawai and Nord have worked closely together in the past, so perhaps Kawai took some influence from Nord and used the same screen here. It's a really nice screen with bright contrast. It's got great viewing angles. You can see it from any angle, standing, sitting, anything. It's a really great screen, and it just looks great. It's really fantastic. You've also got some menu buttons over here, and you'll see me using those later on in the video. But what I wanted to talk about, and the main reason I wanted to remove that, is because I couldn't put the music desk on while that protective panel was there. So this here is the music desk for the ES8, and guess what? There's more protective little sheets on here. So I'm going to get these off as well, which hopefully they will come off. I think there's 2 layers to them. So if you guys liked that first one, you'll get 2 more. Here we go. Here's side 1. It's sticky. Here we go. Now that was good. And I'm going to stick it to me now. Gonna put that down there, and we'll do side B, and then we will put it. It's unfolding. Hopefully that noise doesn't annoy you all. I'm going to unfold this, and then I'm probably gonna get those plastic things out of here, and then we'll put this on the piano. Oh yeah, that is wonderful. They're making noise. I am sorry about that, but that is how the music desk of the Kawai ES920 looks. I need to get those out of here. It just basically sits into place, and it has a very easy installation. I actually like how it goes in there. This particular music desk is reminiscent of others that you've seen. It reminds me particularly of the P515 music desk, but again, there'll be a whole comparison between those two, and I think it'll be really interesting. This music desk is made entirely of plastic. You've got the really nice, clear, I guess polycarbonate, maybe, plexiglass sheet here, and then you've got an ABS plastic bottom here that will hold your music. Again, with every digital piano, I would love to see a digital piano maker that has a whole wide sheet music, because I'm the kind of guy who uses print sheet music, but in today's modern age, an iPad will do just the same job. So I guess that's why people don't really need super wide music desks anymore. So that's how the music desk looks on the ES920. I think, again, it looks really nice. And the 2 things I wanted to talk about, again, are the owner's manual and the pedal. I'm going to save the best for last. I love the pedal of this instrument, so I want to talk about, very briefly, the owner's manual. It's great. It's really, really good. It's absolutely great. So there are a couple of features like the registration, which is new, I think, in this instrument, and the recorder and all that stuff that I wanted to just, read up on to see exactly how it worked and make sure I wasn't missing any features. And I also wanted to see how the Bluetooth works on this, because it has Bluetooth mode. So you can actually use this as a $1,500 Bluetooth speaker. Now, on your phone, when you turn on Bluetooth mode, at least my Samsung phone, there's a Bluetooth icon that appears in the top right corner when Bluetooth is activated, and when Bluetooth is off, that icon's not there. There's a permanent Bluetooth icon that's always here on the ES920 screen. It's always there. So when I first powered it on, I thought, oh, Bluetooth must be on because there's a Bluetooth logo there, just like on my phone. So I pull out my actual phone and I try to connect to Bluetooth, and I spend 5 minutes trying to get that to work, and then I decide to pull out the owner's manual, and I realize that I have to go into the settings and turn on Bluetooth. And then the Bluetooth logo is encircled in white, and the logo itself is inverted in color. So it's a black logo on a white oval. So that indicates the logo that Bluetooth is on, and when it's just a white Bluetooth logo, that means it's off. I would have liked it better if there was no Bluetooth logo when it was off, and then when you turn it on, you have the logo. But whatever. The owner's manual is great. It's really well written. It's really concise. It has every single feature in here you'd need to know anything about, even something simple like how to turn the instrument on. It's got everything in there, and it's just a great manual. It's reminiscent to me of the ones that came with the, the old ES8, the ES110, the MP11 SE. Really, really great owner's manuals. It's very clear to me that Kawai put a lot of effort into that and making it really good. Strange thing to talk about so much, but to me, a good user manual really makes or breaks a product in some cases. This is an easy instrument to use, but there were a couple of things. The menus are different than they used to be before, and it's got some new features that I wanted to know about. Finally, the damper pedal. Let me grab this thing. I am also a fan of damper pedals. I love myself a good quality damper pedal, and this is one of them. This is definitely one of, if not perhaps the best damper pedal in the business. The only single pedal unit I found that would come close to rivaling it is Yamaha's FCA4, I think, is the one that comes with the P515 and the CP88. But this is an incredibly well-built pedal. You've got a solid metal underside. right? That's solid, thick metal. That's like more durable than you put on your car. It's crazy. And you've got these big, the big rubber feet underneath that keep it from slipping on most surfaces. It does move slightly over, 2.5 hours of use on the carpet I've got it on, but it's, very acceptable. And the outside plastic is very durable and hefty. You could throw this down the stairs and it would probably survive just fine. You got a nice big metal pedal here with a big fluffy felt thing underneath to keep it from making noise. The attention to detail in this damper pedal is great. And you might be thinking, why are you talking so much about the damper pedal? But I have been reviewing lots of really cheap keyboards that have come with terrible damper pedals lately, and just playing this and using this is so wonderful compared to those. And even compared to other nicer pedals that come with, more instruments more along this price point, even compared to those pedals, this one's still amazing. So great job, Kawai, on this damper pedal. It's the same one they've used for years, even with the ES110 way back when. Even that came with this pedal. So it's a really amazing pedal, and I'm so glad to see that it's still here in the ES920. I'm pretty sure those are pretty much everything I wanted to talk about, the physicality things about this instrument, the physical things about it. So all that's left to really talk about now are the sounds, the action, and the internal speakers, and also what it's like to play and use the instrument. So for that, what I'm going to do is, like I've said, turn the instrument around so you can see me playing better and so you can see what I'm going to do. And I think I'll see you when all of those changes are made, and it'll be cool. So here we have the Kawai ES920 laid out in such a fashion that you guys can see my hands and you can see the menu to some extent. Because the instrument is black on black, from a distance like that, it's a little bit difficult to see what's going on. But honestly, the user interface is so simple that I didn't really feel like I needed to show you the user interface, because there's no real major flaws with it, there's no real major quirks with it. It just is a user interface, and it's very simple to use. As I said earlier in the video, this instrument comes with an excellent owner's manual, but frankly, you hardly even need it. I really like the effort that Kawai has gone into with that owner's manual, but there's so many things in here that are so simple that you don't need the owner's manual for many of the things, and I really like the simplicity of the user interface. The only thing that isn't super simple here is the menu. It is a little bit strange, kind of like on past Kawai models. It's a little bit of an odd menu that you kind of have to get used to, the way it works and the location of different things. Navigating it is okay. You've got these buttons right up here that are used to navigate the menu. You got your menu buttons here for activating the menu categories. Your value buttons are just to the right of that for adjusting the amount of whatever you're adjusting. And then to the right here is an exit button that you can just rest your fourth finger on and hit like that. So the user interface is really quite simple. Something else on the 920 that's kind of neat, I don't personally have any use for this because I'm very happy with all of the internal sounds of the 920, but you actually have a 4-band EQ up here to adjust the sounds if you needed to. Like I said, personally, I am very happy with all of the internal sounds of the ES920, and although there are a few that I'm not super happy with, those can't be fixed with just an EQ. So I don't really ever use the EQ, but for those of you who feel the need to, it's there. There's also a registration functionality as well, so you can save, I believe, 4 different sounds to all of the different banks of the instrument. You got registration 1B, 1C, and 1D, and then background to 1A. So for each of these sound buttons, you've got 4 different registrations you can save to that, which makes it really cool for users who like to go in there and tweak the sounds. Once again, I'm very happy with the sounds that are built in here, but a lot of people like to go in there and play with the effects and the amp simulators, which this has. And so once you make changes to the reverb and the effects, you can save that as a registration. It's pretty cool. So basically you have a bunch of effects here as well. You've got a bunch of different stuff. Let me run through the different types of effects here. You have compressor, rotary 1, rotary 2, mono delay, ping delay, triple delay, chorus, classic chorus, ensemble, which seems to do nothing, tremolo, classic tremolo, vibrato tremolo, auto pan, classic pan, phaser, classic phaser, and then background to the compressor. So you've got a whole bunch of different effects to play with, as well as an amp simulator, which is designed for the electric pianos to make them sound a little more gritty. You could also use it for the organs or for the clavinet or some of those. There's a simple recorder over here as well. I'll get into this later on in the video if I remember. It's a little bit strange, and I'll talk about why it's a little bit strange. And because it's a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit flawed. I get the logic behind it, but it's a little bit strange, and it had me very puzzled at first. There's a metronome, there's some USB functionality here. You've got a little USB slot right here. You've got your master volume and your power switch. Enough talking about the way it looks, though. What about how does it sound? So what I'm going to do here is play the default piano patch. I'm going to play some Beethoven, some original compositions, and just enjoy the lushness of this sound. It is both lush and thin at the same time. There's a lot of detail and a lot of, well, attention to detail. There's a lot of really nice tones in here, but yet at the same time it isn't a super fat, thick sound. It's kind of very clean and has a lovely clarity to it, and it's one of my favorite digital piano samples that I have tried. Let's check it out. So that is a taste of the SK Concert Grand, which is a digital sample of Kawai's flagship acoustic grand piano, the SK-EX. And although at the current time with today's technology, in my opinion, it's not really possible to completely replicate the sound of an acoustic piano and fool someone into listening to a solo recording of it and of a digital piano and think it's an acoustic piano, we have some really good samples. And this is a really good sample. Now, why do I like the SK Concert Grand sample here so much? Well, frankly, I don't think it captures all of the spirit of a real SK Concert Grand. The SK-EXs I've played have a very fat, thick tone. This one doesn't really have a super fat, thick tone, but yet I still love it. And the reason I love it is because, well, it does capture some of the spirit of an SK-EX. It does have a warm, delicate mid-range that's really, really nice to listen to. And although I like that, and the bass sounds great, the real reason I love this is because of the treble resonance, which is one large thing, in my opinion, separating digital pianos from acoustic pianos, and as far as sound quality is concerned, is the resonance that acoustic pianos have. Even simple uprights will have massive resonance. What resonance is, basically, is when you hold the dampers down and all the strings are able to freely ring, and you play one note, you'll hear other notes ringing in harmony with it, and this is called sympathetic resonance. The piano is resonating. And a lot of digital pianos will imitate this with various sound engines and stuff like that. But in my opinion, none that I have tried so far have as good of a resonance as the Kawai ES920 without and other Kawai models that use this same sound sample, like the MP11 SE, the MP7 SE, the old ES8, stuff like that. I believe the sound samples in this are longer and improved over older models of the ES line, but regardless, other Kawais that use the same sample have the same benefit. The resonance up here is gorgeous. It's very, very nice, and Kawai's put a lot of attention to detail into it. I'm going to play some treble notes here in a second and let you hear just what I'm talking about. Hope you like it. It's just really, really beautiful to listen to up there, and Kawai has put a lot of attention to detail into that. There's a bunch of other different piano sounds in the Kawai ES920, and although most of them are honestly very good, they all, to me, pale in comparison to the SK Concert Grand. What I'm going to do is play an abridged version of an Eric Satie piece and run through all of the all of the ES920's sound files here in the acoustic piano category. I'm just going to flip through them as I'm playing the piece, and you guys can get an idea of what the piano sounds in this instrument sound like. So those are all of the acoustic piano samples of the ES920, and as you can hear, most of them sound very, very nice. There's a couple in there that I'm not a massive fan of, but none of them, in my opinion, sound cheesy or terrible. They all are quite passable. The one I ended up here on is another really good one in this instrument. It's the SK5 grand piano, which the real-life SK5 is basically, in essence, is a smaller version of their flagship, the SKEX. And so that actually has a lot of sonic similarities to the SKEX sample. So although the SKEX sample isn't super true to life, in my opinion, to a real SKEX, the SK5 and the SKEX samples are very similar in tone, so I think Kawai did actually do quite a nice job there sampling those. I think they came out very, very nicely. There's something I was going to say here. I think the order of the sound is a little bit strange. I think the SK5 would belong in the first piano category. The way I would think about it if I were laying out the order of sounds here is you'd have piano category 1 for all the good ones, the SK Concert Grand, the EX Concert Grand, the SK5, and maybe a couple of the other ones like the Jazz Clean and the Warm Grand, and then the Pop Grand 2, and some of the other ones. Because, for example, Pop Grand 1 is in piano category 1, and then Pop Grand 2 is not next to Pop Grand 1, it's in piano category 2 right after the upright piano, which comes after the SK5. So it's kind of a weird order there, not a big deal, just kind of a little bit odd in my opinion. However, I love the piano sounds in this instrument. Up next here we have electric pianos, which are always very fun to take a look at. Again, I think most of the electric piano sounds in the ES920 are pretty strong. They basically contain the usual round of Fender Rhodes type sounds, Wurlitzer 200 type sounds. There's also a Yamaha DX type sound, FM synthesis sort of sound. So basically where I'm going to play all of these kind of like I did for the first one, I'm not going to play Eric Satie, but I'll just play some chords and give you a demo of these different electric piano sounds. And then afterwards, I'll give you my thoughts. So those are the electric piano sounds of the ES920, and honestly, I kind of like them all. The DX is probably my least favorite one because I'm not a massive fan of that type of sound. I think it's so overused in music, but it sounds pretty good on the ES920 as well. Probably my two favorites, though, are the classic electric piano, the one I started and ended on, as well as the one labeled 60s electric piano, which is the one where I played the fun, bouncy chord progression there that I wrote. Those two are definitely my favorites. I really like the extra little clunky noises that Rhodes sound has in it. Sometimes digital piano companies will overdo those, hammer clunk noises and pick up oddities in their simulations of Rhodes pianos, but I don't think it's overdone on the ES920 here. I think it's pretty well done. The next category here is the organs, and as typical with many digital pianos, there's some volume fluctuations, not as bad as in some, but what I'm going to do here is turn the volume down of my keyboard down just a tad for the first two, and then turn it up for the third organ because it's actually a lot quieter than all the other sounds in the instrument. You got jazz organ, you've got drawbar organ, you've got ballad organ, which I think might be my favorite of the group. You've also got principal octave and church organ. So let's start back here at the beginning of jazz organ. I've got my volume turned down a little bit. Let's run through these really quickly. So those are the organ sounds of the Kawai ES920. The ballad organ, I think, might be my favorite. Although it is dull and quiet, it also has a nice liveliness to it. And those are the organ sounds of the instrument. They're not the main focal point, so in my opinion, it's probably the weakest category in the ES920, but there are organ sounds, and in a mix, in a live situation, they'd probably be quite passable. I think before we move on to any other segment of the instrument, I think it's about time we begin to talk about the action, because that's a really crucial part of any digital piano, and it's something people wanted to know about the ES920. How is the action? Well, as a whole, it's actually quite nice. The feel of the action is extremely playable. There's not really any problems you're going to have. You're not going to be unable to play a certain type of music. It's very, very, very playable, and overall it has a very nice feel. It's a little bit lighter than my personal preferences are. It does have a very light feel, and in that regard doesn't feel a lot like a piano, but it definitely would be great for, learning how to play the piano, practicing piano, even relatively advanced classical. You'd be fine with this on it. It responds in a way that a real piano would, although it doesn't quite feel the same way as a real piano does. The response that you get from the instrument is quite piano-like, which is really, really good. There's only two things I don't like about the action, one of which seems to have been improved a bit since previous versions of the RH3, and that's the feel of the let-off at the bottom of the key, the little bump that you feel as you gently push the key down. In prior versions of this, I felt that it was really, really gummy at the key bottom, and that playing quiet stuff like the Eric AT I played at the beginning of the video was difficult and felt awful, and either my expectations have changed or it's been improved, one of the two, because in my opinion it feels a lot better, and that let-off bumpiness isn't as bad as it used to be. You can still feel it, but in my opinion, it's a bit smoother than it used to be. The other problem is the noise the action itself makes. It is quite loud, especially on return when you let go of the keys. The noise that the keys make when they go down is okay. That's pretty standard. My mics are boosting that a little bit because they're very sensitive, but believe me, that's actually an acceptable volume for the key depressing noise, if that makes sense. When you push the key down, that's actually quite quiet. What isn't so quiet is when the key comes back up. Check it out. Hear that? They bounce. And it's not just because I'm playing 6 different notes at once, it's even just one note. Hear that? That's something that's plagued the RH3 for a very long time, and unfortunately Kawai has not fixed that just yet. In my opinion, that's the number one thing holding back the RH3 from really being a truly stellar action. It plays great, but I just feel like this shouldn't really be a thing for an instrument that costs this much money. That's just my personal belief. But it's not really a deal killer. I just would like to see that fixed myself personally. The next category in the ES920 is a bit of a miscellaneous category labeled harpsichord and mallets. You've got a harpsichord sound and a couple of mallet instruments. You've got a vibraphone, then a clavinet, which is not a mallet instrument or a harpsichord, although it is kind of an electric clavichord. And then you've got the marimba. So once again, a kind of an odd order of sounds. You'd think the harpsichord and the clavinet would go together because the clavinet's basically an electrified clavichord, which is an ancestor of the harpsichord. So you'd think that those two would go together because they have a similar timbre, and then marimba and vibraphone would go together because they're very closely related instruments from the idiophone family that literally are the exact same, except the marimba has bars made of wood, and the what's it called? I forgot the name. Vibraphone. The vibraphone has bars made of metal and resonator tubes. Pulsator discs, actually. Anyways, enough nerding out about idiophones. Let's get on with the harpsichord sound here. Let's check it out. Those are all the sounds in that category. It's a pretty small but fun sound category. One thing I thought I would mention about the ES920 that seems to be a common issue with many digital pianos is that there are no seamless sound switching. This isn't a huge deal for me because I don't do a lot of live performances where I'm changing sounds mid-performance, but I know a lot of people do. So essentially, as you may have heard throughout the video, if you're holding down one tone on the piano and you change the sound, especially if that next sound has an effect on it, or if your previous sound had an effect and the next one doesn't, the effect will go away and the sustain will still be there, but it'll be altered to reflect what the next sound is doing. So say, for example, you're going from a Rhodes with an autopan to Rhodes with a phaser. If you hold the autopan Rhodes down and then switch to the next sound, the sustain from the autopan Rhodes will now have a phaser. And let me demonstrate. Let me go to the electric piano. Let's go from classic E piano to classic E piano 2, and I believe the second one has a phaser, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. So there you go. Not a big deal for me because I don't really do that often, but I know that is a thing a lot of people look for in an instrument, and I find it really weird that a $1,500 digital piano doesn't have that. I was playing a $200 Yamaha Piaggero that actually was able to do that, and I think even Yamaha's $50 instruments might have been able to do it. Funnily enough, Yamaha's higher class instruments don't have seamless sound switching, which is weird. Up next, we have the strings and choir section, which is another fun, interesting one. Let's dive into these and play some notes on everything. Those are all of the strings and pad sounds of the ES920, and they're not phenomenal, but they're also not terrible, so they're there. They're probably pretty good for layering in with other sounds and such. Speaking of layering, you can actually easily layer and split instruments. Let's do the slow strings in combination with the SKEX. It's as simple as just pushing the two buttons at the same time, and actually if you want one to be a little bit more dominant than the other, or if you just want it to be displaying on top, all you got to do is simply hold the SK conjugrand and then push the slow strings. That'll put the SK conjugrand on top with the slow strings on the bottom. You can do the opposite way. Hit slow strings, hit SK conjugrand. Now it's the other way around. So let's do SK conjugrand layered with slow strings and just play something. I don't know. So that's that, and it's pretty cool. The final category of sounds on the ES920 is the bass category, which has, well, basses. Pretty obvious. These are really good for the split and layer as well. Let me do a classic, not classic, let's do the 60s E piano split with the electric, hang on a minute, I messed that up. Let's do the 60 key piano layered with the electric bass. The way the split function works is if you just push any key, that changes your top note, not any key, any sound button. That changes your top sound by default. And if you hold the split button and push any sound, that changes the bottom note, which will be the note that's down here. So let's play just a little bit of the split sound, and then after that I'll just run through all of the basses and just let you know how those sound. And that is every sound in the Kawai ES920, and in a sense, that wraps up part of the review. Those are all of the sounds of the ES920. But I thought I'd talk about a couple of other things about the ES920 as well. One of those would be the rhythm section and the recorder, and another one would be, I guess, the metronome and some of the other features I haven't talked about. Also, the transpose function. Let's talk about that first. That's the most fun here. So the transpose function works very easily. You hold the transpose button and then hit any note on the keyboard to identify how many notes up or down you want the instrument to transpose. So for example, if I want it to go up by one whole step, I just push the D above middle C and it'll be going up 2 half steps. But if I want it to go down 12 half steps, I just hit the C below middle C, and what that does is shift the whole instrument down an octave. Now this is not the only digital piano that does this, but I think it might be one of the ones that does it best. Basically it gives you access to the extended ranges of certain types of pianos, like the Busenhofer 280 has extra notes in the bass. It goes all the way down to the C below the normal lowest note on the instrument. So this can give you a simulation of that, and you can do the opposite as well. You can get the extended range above your normal highest note, an octave above that, which is kind of fun to listen to how that might sound. So let's try out those and just play a couple of notes and let you guys hear that. So you can have some fun with the transposing side of things as well, and you've also got the rhythm section. Now the rhythm section in person, the drum beats sound way louder than everything else you play, but then on recording it actually sounds pretty normal. So I'm just going to show you the rhythm section. The rhythm section is not only does it have a metronome, which you can access right here. It's a metronome, it's about as simple as that. You also have a rhythm section, which gives you access to a whole wide array of different drum beats and things of that nature. I'm going to go in here and select, that's the tempo. Hang on, that's the menu. Let me see here, rhythm section. Let's change, there we go. These ones. Let's go in here and choose 16, shuffle 1. We'll choose the tempo up to around about 100 BPM, and I'll show you the accompaniment, because it's got some chord progressions that follow you around and a little bass line that does some stuff in the ES920, and I'm personally not a big fan of it. You can easily turn it off, but I figured I'd show you kind of what I'm talking about here. So let's check this out. So it definitely was making me play a bit louder there, and my audio was peaking a little bit, so I do apologize for that. But as you can hear there, the accompaniment bits really get in the way of what I'm trying to play. Now, it's not because it's not tracking the chord. When I play those chords on here, especially when it's running, it was tracking them a second ago. It should track them here. It was tracking them a second ago, and it showed the chords up on screen, and when I was doing it the first time around, it was showing the chords I was playing, and now it isn't. I don't know why that is. But it was tracking the chords I was playing, but the little... Oh, I know why. It's because I don't have the accompaniment going. There we go. So that when you have the accompaniment off, it doesn't show you what chords you're playing. I've got the accompaniment back on now. When I play these chords, it actually does detect the proper chord that I'm playing. It's just that the accompaniment bits just are really complicated. Have a listen to them by themselves. By themselves, they sound quite simple, but actually when I'm playing chords and rhythms of my own, they really get in the way. Now, you could probably write your own music to really go well with that, but I feel like it's just a little bit, for me, it kind of gets in the way of what I need to do, and just having the drums by themselves be on by default and having the accompaniment be an option you can toggle instead of the other way around, I think might be better. It's not a deal killer, once again, but I just think I'm not a big fan of the accompaniment myself. Honestly, I'm usually not a big fan of accompaniment systems in digital pianos. Sometimes they can be pretty fun, but in this case, I'm not really a fan of the auto accompaniment here. That's honestly just about everything that I can think of that I want to talk about with the Kawai ES920. As a whole, it is a very good digital piano. I feel like some of my feelings are a little bit, I don't know, let down in a sense, because I expected a really well-built digital piano. Kawai has always built really well-built digital pianos, and this is not particularly well-built. You can hear that. It's not ideal. This, you know, it's just thin, hollow plastic. I don't really like the build quality of the ES920. However, the things it can do are, in a sense, better than ever. The sound quality of the digital pianos, the sound quality of the electric pianos, and some of the other sounds are really, really good. And for practicing, even for performing, the ES920 will definitely have your back. You really can't exactly go wrong with it in this price bracket. It's a very competitive instrument. It competes well with the other instruments that have been in this price bracket in the past and that are currently in this price bracket. For example, the old ES8 and the current Yamaha P515. I actually happen to own both of those as well as this ES920, so I'm actually going to be doing full reviews and comparisons of those two. A comparison between the ES920 and its previous model, the ES8, and the ES920 versus its current competition, well, some of its current competition, the Yamaha P515. So if you're interested in those types of videos, you might want to stay tuned and check out my channel in the future. Those will be coming out like as soon as I can possibly get them out, so definitely stay tuned for that. If you think that might be cool, you might want to think about subscribing, and if you do subscribe, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.